Welcome back to Gold and Black Live. We've done a little switcheroo here and sent a couple back to the penalty box in Gold and Black terms, and that's the editing room. We find new and different things as Kyle comes in, and we find new and different problems as we go.
I don't even know what day it is anymore.
Yeah,
is this week over?
Yeah, it's almost over. So Coach Dave Shondell here obviously has done a wonderful job at Purdue's volleyball coach. They had a big win this week over Indiana. You play in the grinder called the Big Ten, which is just the best league by a long shot, it seems, in women's volleyball. Always good to beat Indiana, like you said, off air, but it wasn't easy.
No, Indiana currently is in last place in the Big Ten, but you can be in last place in the Big Ten and still have a pretty good team. Yeah. They've had a lot of road matches this year, and they came in and after the first game, really turned into a pretty good volleyball team. And I went back and looked at the tape and tried to figure out how was Indiana staying with us point for most of the night, and they just played well. And they are a little bit unorthodox. They have two left-handers, and normally you don't see a lot of lefties in volleyball, especially two of them on one team. And we had trouble making the adjustment with them, and they just played hard. They played with a little more purpose than we did after game one. And fortunately, game five, our team really came out of the gate and put it on them pretty heavy, and were able to relax a little bit from that point on.
Boiler Rip has a question for you about injuries, and they're a topic in every sport, and sometimes yours in particular. You had a couple injuries with Anna Drury and Jacqueline Hart last year that hurt you in the tournament, and you've got a couple injuries this season too. Just how are you doing?
Well, overall, I think our health situation is better than most. The key player that I'm sure people are wondering about is Carly Kramer. Carly became kind of a folk hero last year during the NCAA tournament, the way she played as our libero, and she is kind of a spiritual leader on our team. And she has a stress fracture, the beginnings of a stress fracture. It's not really there, whatever that means, but it's the beginning of one. And so we're being real careful with her. We gave her about 4 weeks off, tried to play her a little bit in a match at Nebraska. She was sore the next day, and so we put her on the shelf. And there's a chance that we'll medically redshirt her this year. And I know our fans don't want to hear that because they want to see Carly Kramer back on the floor because she's a difference maker. But the positive is we get Carly healthy and take care of her, which is our number one concern. And the second thing is we've got her for another year. If she comes back this year, she's probably going to be put into a three-rotation player role. If we save her for another year, we got her to play libero, which is a six-rotation role for another year. So in theory, it makes more sense to probably redshirt her. It just means that we may not be quite as strong in every aspect this year as we might have been if she could come back and play.
Right. Now you go into this weekend, obviously Minnesota comes into Beeland Court tomorrow night, 7 o'clock match, and again, there are no nights off in the Big Ten. The Gophers are a very, very talented team, and how do you keep, now that we'll comment a little bit about Minnesota, but also how do you keep a team just knowing that it's just night after night, you have to be at the absolute best if you're going to compete?
I think that's the biggest challenge that we have playing in the Big Ten is that we have to be, number one, coaches have to be totally prepared. There's a lot of tape to watch and a lot of things that we have to do in the gym to get our team ready. And then mentally, just to make sure that we're geared up, every time we step on the floor, because if you're not, you're going to get beat. It's just that simple. So that's the challenge. I was just telling somebody the other day that the Big Ten season can be like a runaway train. I mean, it just gets going, and if you're not on your toes all the time and outworking everybody else, you're in trouble. And this year it's no different. It got tougher this year, obviously, with Nebraska coming into the fray. It made our league clearly the best league in the country. And nobody is easy. You talk about Indiana being the last place team, and they come into our place and take us to 5 games, and we're a pretty good team. Yeah. So it's just a real challenge, and you have to make sure you get your team enough rest at the right time. But you've also got to be training them to get better. So as the season goes on, you're keeping pace, or maybe outpacing the rest of the teams in your league. So it's a real challenge. I mean, if it wasn't for the 10 weeks of the Big Ten, this would be a great job. It would be the best job in America. But you've got to play those 10 weeks of 20 matches in the Big Ten, and it's a grind.
How is it that the Big Ten got this way? Because I mean, you play, there's 7 teams in the top 25 right now.
And Michigan State should be in there.
In
Yeah.
theory, you could play a couple rounds in the NCAA tournament, right, without facing a
Right.
top 25 team. Maybe even 3 rounds without facing a top 25 team.
Probably two. It'd be hard to get into the Sweet 16 and not face somebody who's probably really, really good. But I think number one, the Big Ten has dedicated themselves to supporting women's sports, and certainly volleyball is one of the upper tier sports in the Big Ten. And I think that the Midwest has become a real power in the sport of volleyball at high school and club level. And those kids now, as opposed to 15, 20 years ago when they all wanted to go out to California and play at UCLA and USC and Stanford and those places, at Hawaii for that matter, they would now rather go to the Big Ten and play at a Big Ten school where they know they're going to play in front of, usually a minimum of 2,000 and as many as 5,000 every night. And, our situation, we're treated very similar to men's basketball. I mean, we have all the resources we need. We're charter flying wherever we go. We're staying at nice places, providing we're playing well, and and we eat well. But it's just a good situation. But certainly the support that the Big Ten universities have provided for the volleyball teams is a big reason why we're where we are now.
All right, cool question from Kevin. How was your experience at Nebraska outside of not getting the win? What type of atmosphere he says, I hear they have a great atmosphere there.
Well, they really do. It's a very volleyball savvy city. I mean, volleyball is one of the premier sports there, along with football. But people treated us really well. I've never been on a road trip where everybody wants to meet you and they tell you good luck. I mean, they're all wearing Husker red, but they're telling you good luck. And after the match was over, and we played well there. We had a pretty good match there, and it was hotly contested. But fans coming down and telling you, Coach, great match, congratulations, you got a great team. Things that you just normally don't get. I think Nebraska is a very special place, and I think that they're a great addition to the Big Ten. And quite frankly, even before they came in, our goal was to try to simulate some of the things that were going on in Nebraska. Where they play right now, the Coliseum, this is their last year before they move in the Devaney Center, right, which holds about 7,000. But where they play now holds 4,100. They've sold it out for over 100 consecutive matches. They open up season ticket sales on July 1st, and by noon on July 1, they're sold out. And so, I think that they're going to, when they come in here and play in a couple of weeks, there'll be a lot of red in there because they're going to travel with that team. And it's what we aspire to here, is that, we have sold out a lot of matches this year, but they weren't sold out on July 1. We've had to do a lot of promoting and winning as well to get people to come out and watch us play. But that's kind of the goal, is at the start of the season to put those 2,500 seats on sale and have them all sold out. And we have a really good product as well. We haven't been around as long at the top level like Nebraska has. We haven't won national championships, and they've won 3, but that's kind of what we're looking to become.
Yeah. Good question here from Pete, and a typical, it's an impossible question. Well, maybe it's not, but it seems to me for Coach to answer. Purdue's volleyball team last year versus this year, which team wins?
Well, I think down the stretch last year, I mean, we weren't setting the world on fire at this point last year. We had beaten Penn State, which was a big win, and we were playing pretty well. But it wasn't until we got into about the final third of the season that our team pulled together like no team I've ever coached before. And a lot of it was a rally around Jacqueline Hart and her dad. I think that was something special. And I'm just hoping it's not going to take a severe situation like that for a team to come together and play at the high level. We haven't done anything special this season. We're 17-3. We've lost to 3 teams that are ranked in the top 8 in the country. We lost at Illinois, who's ranked number 1. We lost at Nebraska, who's number 4 this week. And then we had Penn State at home in a match that I thought we could win and didn't play real well, and Penn State beat us. We've beaten everybody else. That's been, probably 7 or 8 top 25 or 30 teams. But I'm still waiting to see which of our players are going to really pull this team together and make it a special group. That's what we're waiting on. So it'd be a hard question. Right now, I'd say it'd be a pretty good battle. But last year's team really turned on a switch, last third of the season. And had Jacqueline not gotten hurt, I think that we'd have been a Final Four team.
Just a follow-up from Pete here to Kevin's question. How do you think Beeland Court stacks up as far as an environment goes in the Big Ten?
That's a really good question. I think that it's in the upper 3 or 4. It's a smaller, confined area, which I like. I think Nebraska may find out that they're going to wish they stayed at the Coliseum as opposed to going to the Devaney Center, because their place right now is tight. And our place is very tight. And if you fill the place every night with 2,500 people, and we have as good of a student crowd. Illinois and Purdue have the best student crowds in the Big Ten. You know, we've got a choreographed group down there.
Yeah.
Now, the only thing that our crowd's very nice. Our fans are very hospitable. We don't get on opposing players and things like that. It's all pro Purdue, which is the way it should be. But that means it's not quite as tough on the opponents when they come in. But we're close to the floor. It's a great facility, and I wouldn't trade it for any other facility in the Big Ten right now.
What's the thing that's made, you guys had, in your tenure here, had a real upswing to start, had a little leveling off, and had a year where you weren't as good as you'd like to be, but you had to get your program back. You had several factors that may have contributed to that, but what has it taken for you to get this team? I mean, it's talent, but it's also getting the teams to play together to get it back to a level where it's an elite level team in the country.
It's just like anything else in coaching. It's a matter of getting your players and the people in your program to believe and buy in to where you want to go. And when we first got here, the talent wasn't real good, but they bought in and they believed, and we were able to take those steps early. We went from where we were 141st in RPI, the year before we got here, and we jumped up to top 25 in about 2 or 3 years. Well, that was pretty easy compared to now going from where you got into the top 25 and now go to the top 10 or the top 5 on a regular basis. Then you got to start, beating a lot of really, really strong programs that have been around for a long time. But it's recruiting, getting the kind of athletes that are going to give you a chance to beat the Penn States and the Illinois and the Stanfords and the Texas and Floridas and people like that. But it still comes down to having special characters on your team that are going to do the extra things that they need to do, and they believe and are confident. Leadership is still really, really important, and you got to get a break along the way. But I think that I'm really proud of where we are right now from where we were 8.5 years ago when our staff came on board. And the other thing is that we've got great coaches. I mean, Kathy Jewell and John Shondell have been here the entire time I've been here. There's not a coaching staff in the country that's been together that long. And so either they like it here or they can't get a job anywhere else, one of the two. But John's one of the best trainers in America. He just can train the heck out of kids, and they love him. And Kathy's become a tremendous recruiter and has also really ramped up her ability to go in the gym and make players better. And I think that we feed off each other, and I think our coaching staff is very good. And you're not gonna survive in the Big Ten if you don't have a real good coaching staff.
Yeah. State of Indiana, I mean, obviously high school volleyball has improved. But you can't do it all from the state of Indiana. But is it fair to say it has enough of a base that you can be competitive, or do you still? I know you go anywhere that you can to find players, but how important is the state of Indiana?
Well, it's very important. And Indiana was at one point in time probably the 3rd or 4th best state in the country. I think that volleyball is now kind of spread out to where there's some other states that maybe because of their size have probably moved up on the list a little bit, but we have to start with Indiana. If we could get the best 2 or 3 players out of the state of Indiana every year, we wouldn't need to go anywhere else. And everybody, you might think, well, why can't you get the best players? Well, because everyone in the country is coming after them. Okay, Penn State, Texas, Stanford, Florida, all the Big Ten, they love to come in Indiana and get players because they're usually very well trained and they're tough. And they're going to work hard. So we've done very well. Most years we've gotten the best player out of the state. Most years. I mean, Kiki Jones was the best player of the state last year. We've got an incoming player this year that we think was the best prospect in the state that will come in next year. And you go back to the years of of Merlau and Lynch and several others that that have come in here that have been very, very good. But the problem is if you don't get those top 2 or 3, then you've got to go to work. And we talked about, I think this last time, is that the respect that Purdue has gets bigger the further away you get. I mean, when we go out to California, you go to Texas or Colorado or Florida, people immediately are excited about Purdue. They know the academic tradition. They know it's in the Big Ten. And of course, with the success we've had lately, we sometimes have better luck going out of the state than we do have in the state because it's kind of taken for granted when it's an in-state kid.
Well, you're going to interview him tomorrow on your show, so
I'm saving all my good questions.
Okay, all right, you can do that now. The coach is good enough, and that's why we love Dave Shondell, because not only does he promote his program and his kids bring unbelievable effort to the court, but he has practice in about 6 minutes. So and he's got a huge match tomorrow night. But let's talk, a little bit about you always also are very keen, and we could have you on for a whole show. We've talked about you being as a permanent guest host, just because you know sports and obviously know the philosophy of kind of what's going on. But Purdue football has an interesting matchup tomorrow, certainly, and a program that needs to do something special to get over the hump. And to get a quality win. What are you seeing there, not just tomorrow, but in the improvement of this football team?
Well, I don't think anybody really knows for sure,
Yeah.
What will happen with the rest of the football season with Purdue, because they were counted out so early, and then, of course, they beat Minnesota, which a lot of people are going to do this year, and then really played very well at Penn State. I thought to me, that was the biggest win of the year, was going to Penn State, and even though we didn't win the game, I thought our kids played so hard and were physical, and all of a sudden you started to see different looks on their faces and different demeanor on the team, and that was the first time I'd seen that all year. And I haven't watched them play, a lot in person, but I'm watching them on TV when we're on the road, and I thought, boy, that looks like a team that's starting to think they can beat somebody. And then you get Illinois, who, Illinois is off to a great start. I wish they would have won last week, because then they would have been really ripe for the picking, I think, if they'd have come in here. But they get beat, and I think Zook and Coach Hope are similar in how they operate, and I think that's going to be a fun, and I'll be there watching it. I think that will be a really fun contest to watch. But I think that we're better than people give us credit for. I think our players love the coaching staff. I think that they want to win for that coaching staff, and I just think that our talent's getting a little bit better. But so much of it is when they suit it up, do they think they're going to be able to beat Illinois? And I think the Notre Dame game really took a lot of wind out of our sails. But I think as the season goes on, people are going to find out Notre Dame's a heck of a football team. And I hate to say that, okay, because I don't like Notre Dame more than anybody else in this room does. But I think we're going to find out they've got great talent, and they're going to have a really good season. So I still think that the verdict is still out on really how good we are. I think that they have the ability right now, the opportunity to prove people that they've got a good team, and I think that they will play well together. I think that the coaching staff, as I read their notes and their quotes, they recognized early on that maybe we ought to be doing some things differently. Maybe we ought to be doing a little more hitting and cracking some people in practice, and so that's what coaching is. Okay, you adjust and you go from there, and I would love to see them get that win tomorrow, because I think that would really give us some confidence as we move on.
And before everybody goes on to their homecoming activities, stop by Beeland Court tomorrow night, Purdue, Minnesota, 7 o'clock. Coach, we'll let you get back, and we will have you on after the season maybe for the whole show. We'll talk about the NCAA and anything else, because he's very calculating what he says, but it's always well thought out, and we enjoy your comments. And we're going to be talking to you tomorrow morning on Countdown for Kickoff. Kyle, well, I'll just sit there and be drinking coffee. But thanks again. Good luck tomorrow night.
Well, thank you very much.
Should be warm, huh, tomorrow?
I hope so.
Yeah.
Well, it'll be warmer than it is now, and it's going to be a good day for football. And there is indoor heat at Beeland Court, because they bring it there. That's a great environment for volleyball if you haven't had a chance to get over to see that. So, Coach, good luck to you. Thank you
very
again,
much.
and
Thanks, guys.
we will see you tomorrow morning, but we'll see you again on the show. And for all of you, hang loose. Mark Herman is set to join us next for our final segment of Gold and Black Live.
Just one night. One team victorious. The story behind the score. The rivalries. The big plays. From the sidelines to you. On the air, online. Are you ready for the frenzy? Friday Night Frenzy. High school football from where you live.
Check out the Purdue collection now at Follett's. Boiler up with Nike Fantastic T-shirts, League and Champion fashion colors. Simply fabulous, simply Follett's. Purdue pride everywhere on game day. Nike sideline, worn by the team, by the players, and by you. And make every day game day with tailgate toss. Follett's, Purdue pride, a Purdue tradition, 17 game day locations.
West Point Steakhouse is a family-owned restaurant known for premium quality steaks. Open for dinner Thursday through Saturday. Stop by for the Thursday night prime rib special or Friday and Saturday night specials like pasta and seafood. Be sure to come and enjoy all the food and fun at West Point Steakhouse.
You can now get a quote or buy car insurance 24 hours a day. Call me, State Farm Agent Trent Johnson, at 743-9595 and see how much money you can save today.
Going to the Purdue game? Stay at Hilton Garden Inn, West Lafayette at the Wabash Landing. Your family will love the well-appointed guest rooms, the pool, whirlpool, fitness center, the breakfast buffet, and the amazing Hilton Garden Inn staff. Located just 4 blocks from Purdue University, Hilton Garden Inn has long been the choice for Purdue fans. Call today for a reservation and make Hilton Garden Inn your #1 choice.
When you see it happen, report it. Send us your news stories, photos, and videos with our Report It feature. It's easy with WLFI.com and the WLFI smartphone app. With a few simple clicks, you can send videos and photos of breaking news coverage. See your submissions on air as part of our broadcast or online in the Report It gallery. WLFI.com. Always mobile, always connected.
Welcome back to Gold and Black Live. This is the closest I'm going to get to be doing my Rush Limbaugh impression here as I sit here by myself. But luckily, we have Mark Herman on the line, and a lot to say. I'm sure we'll have a lot of questions from Mark as well. Mark, you there?
I'm here, Alan.
Great. Hey, thank you for joining us, and Mark down in Indy this afternoon. Always a lot to talk about with a guy that's a college football Hall of Fame quarterback, and I'm sure that even though that was a short period of time ago, that still is something you always like to hear.
Oh my gosh, yeah, I'll never tire of hearing that after my name. So it's been a tremendous year, and all the thrills, and just getting to meet so many wonderful people, and just being able to rehash the Purdue days and to really tighten that bond and just to remember all those great things that happened to us while at Purdue. It's just been such a fun experience. I hated to see the year end, but it's still very nice memories to continue forward.
Well, I'm going to take you into your memory bank and look at your playing days in Illinois, and you always had some interesting battles with the Illini. Certainly your freshman year, a game that you don't win, as I recall, in West Lafayette, but in '78, your sophomore year with the junk defense, a televised game, go over to Illinois and beat the Fighting Illini 13-0. Your senior year, which we probably ought to hit on a little bit more, just the fact that you break a record and then Dave Wilson comes back and breaks yours. But tell us about your memories of playing against the Fighting Illini and what that game meant to you.
Yeah, it was always a very hard-fought game, and we did struggle that first year and the freshman year. But then as personnel improved and our defense got a lot better in our sophomore year, we were really quite a running team, as you remember, and we were more balanced, and Coach Young wanted to kind of take a little pressure off. So that's what we kind of morphed into my sophomore year. And then junior and senior year, and you mentioned the senior year, which was a fun game over in Champaign where we were racking up points at a pretty alarming rate. And by the end of the third quarter, Coach Young said, you were done, and you mentioned the Big Ten record, and then about half an hour later, Dave Wilson continued on, and they were down quite a bit, but he ended up putting some amazing numbers on the board and ended up taking over that record. So I had it for about 20 to 30 minutes.
Well, and you had the record, obviously, after that season, leaving Purdue as the NCAA's all-time leading passer. But no, I just remember in that game the fact that, that last quarter took about an hour and a half to play just because Illinois was throwing on every down and trying to get as many yards as it possibly could.
Yeah, it was. It was kind of, it was relaxing to sit over there and watch because we had such a big lead. But, yeah, you're right. It just kept going and going. And Dave Wilson was in the no huddle throwing every down and just seemed to be getting probably 200 yards in that fourth quarter. I didn't think the game would ever end, but really never felt it was in doubt. But we just wanted to, get on the bus and get back to Lafayette. But it was just a never-ending fourth quarter, as you mentioned.
The other thing that people ask about, because one of the things that Purdue was ahead of its time, obviously, and certainly a big reason why you picked Purdue, certainly recruited by Notre Dame and several other schools, and Purdue was a running school under running offense predominantly under Alex Agassi, and of course there's a coaching change between your senior year in high school and your freshman year in college. But tell us a little bit about the really, Purdue looked at the time, it wasn't basketball and grass. It was a very different type of offense, but it was an offense that was more predicated, obviously, on throwing the football and very much ahead of the game in terms of what was in the Big Ten at the time.
No question, and that's what really attracted me to Purdue, that we could kind of be the pioneers at that point. I really felt Coach Young was bringing in a very sound system that could kind of use the talents that I had. I mean, assuming that I was going to be the starter, and I had hoped that would be the case. But, we did spread things out, but we ended up being a pretty good play-action type team. We used our tight end quite a bit, and we used, 2, sometimes 3 wide receivers, but we used Dave Young in quite a different fashions, moving him in motion and splitting him out because he was such a tremendous athlete that he was almost like that third wide receiver. But, we had Bartis, the possession receiver, and then we had different guys at the flanker position, Ray Smith and Steve Bryant, Mike Harris, guys that could really get down the field. So we had a nice combination, but I think we used our personnel very well, and we spread things out, and we weren't too tight ends a lot or tight formations. We like to spread things out, but still be able to run the football out of that, and then we, had that throwing component as well.
Quarterback certainly at Purdue, it's an important fraternity certainly, and the fact that this is a group of guys that the cradle of quarterbacks that you're very, very proud of, and yet this is every year there's so much focus on the quarterback at Purdue. Caleb Terbush has started 6 games, has I think managed things, most people would say, relatively well. Purdue's 3-3 right now. What have you seen out of Caleb that you like, and what do you see out of that offense in terms of potential?
Well, I do like the fact that Alan, I think every time he's come out, he's improved, and he's looking more comfortable. He's looking more decisive. I think as a quarterback, you've got to be able to anticipate where you're going with the football, and sometimes your pre-read snap will be different as the play continues on, but you've got to be able to make quick decisions on where your outlets are, and the more you play, the more comfortable you are knowing where to go with the football when somebody's covered. And I think Caleb is starting to see the field better. I think he's grasping what Coach Gary Nord and Danny Hope are trying to get done. I think there's some growth there. Obviously, he's not a finished product yet, and I think he has a little ways to go as far as moving the football around. But as far as, physical abilities, he's tall, he's good size, good strong arm, and I think he's a pretty accurate passer. So I really like his development, and I think the guys around him have got to continue to be able to make plays for him. And I mean, getting open, making catches in traffic, and those types of things have got to help Caleb. But I think But what he's been asked to do, I think he's been very, very good and very productive.
You know, you look at an offense, and there's been a lot of talk in West Lafayette, and certainly you watch this team closely about its inability to get the ball over the top, just being able to hurt people deep, basically. And I think that this is, you know, maybe a combination of things. Certainly last week in the game at Penn State, Purdue does go over the top of the pass to Gary Bush. Bush makes an athletic play, doesn't quite come down with the football, but how important, at the risk of stating the obvious here, how much longer can you go without proving to folks that you can beat people deep and still be able to scare opposing defensive coordinators?
Well, you bring up a great point. You've got to be able to pressure defenses. They've got to figure that you can go over the top at any time, and I'm not sure Purdue has shown that as of yet. And before they're going to be a great offense, I think they've got to be able to challenge down the field, and I think they've got some guys to do that. But it seems like protection breaks down. I'd like to see them get into maybe a tighter formation, go play action, and I'd love to see more play action from this team because that's the only way there's going to be a hesitancy in the defense. When they're staring, knowing that you're going to throw, then there's nothing that's going to say, oh, my gosh, there's a threat of a run. I've got to come up a little bit. So I'd love to see play action become a bigger part of this offense, and then you get the over-the-top balls. I mean, we probably average 12, 13 yards per completion, and I think this team's probably closer to 8 or 9. So without that deep threat, they end up squatting on that underneath stuff, and it really makes it tough on your receivers because at 10 or 12 yards, those defensive backs are figuring, well, they're not going to go by me, so I'm going to sit on this out route or this curl route. And as a quarterback, when you see guys draped all over your receivers, it's tough to fit it in there. So I would like to see that component of the offense come to be here pretty quickly.
Your day job is certainly involved with Peyton Manning, but there's been so much talk about number 7 in Indianapolis, and certainly with Curtis Painter. You know, Curtis has made some real progress. You watch the Colts closely, and you're obviously probably every Purdue fan out there that cares about football will be watching Sunday night when the Colts travel down to New Orleans for the game on Sunday night on the NBC game. But tell us about what you've seen in Curtis Painter's development at quarterback and what you've seen to date with him.
Well, I think it's very similar to what Caleb Turbush is going through. I think you see improvement every time out, and Curtis is really under the microscope here. And as you know, during preseason, there weren't a lot of fans of Curtis Painter, and you know, people have been critical, and you know, I've been critical of him at times, and certainly in the media here in Indianapolis. But I think you see the growth of Curtis. The more reps that he gets, and let's face it, he doesn't have any reps going into this year because with Peyton takes everything, and you're just getting mental reps on the side. Well, you can see Curtis getting more comfortable every week, and he's making some great throws. When you give him time and he's comfortable with protection and the route structure, I think you can see that he can deliver the football. And now, you know, he still has to grow as far as changing plays up at the line of scrimmage, getting into the best protections and best plays to hurt defenses when they blitz. But I think Curtis has elevated himself to a quality backup. He started 3 games now in this league, and I think people are taking notice that this guy can play a little bit. So I think that's been good, and Curtis has bought his teammates. I think they're buying into what he's bringing, and I think the coaching staff is as well. And I think gradually the fan base here with the Colts is saying, hey, Curtis Painter's not the reason we're losing right now. We've got to shore up other areas. But Curtis, I think, is really progressing as an NFL quarterback, and I think Sunday night's matchup will be a lot of fun where you see a finished product in Drew Brees, who's a tremendous player, and then Curtis Painter is somebody who's growing as a position.
You know, and assuming Peyton Manning comes back next year, and that's the assumption certainly at this point. Does Curtis Painter do you think he's played his way into another job in the NFL? If that's, you know, do you think somebody else may look at him in a different light heading down the road, or you know, obviously he still would have an opportunity potentially at Indianapolis as well. But that would be my next question for Curtis: has he played himself in an ability to continue to get work in the NFL?
Well, every game you play is kind of a resume builder, and it's an audition. You're not only playing for your own team, but opportunities for other teams around the league. And let's say the Colts go 1-15 this year, and they get the number 1 pick. Andrew Luck sitting out there, and we'll talk about this a ton for the next 3 months, what the Colts are going to do with that pick. But if the Colts take Andrew Luck, then certainly Curtis's opportunities to be with this team certainly are weakened, and so therefore other teams will see that he's had some productive games at the quarterback position. So let's face it, there are a lot of teams out there that do not have good quarterback play. So I think Curtis has a job somewhere. Whether it's in Indianapolis or not, we'll see. But I think he's really done a nice job just building his abilities and making sure that he's comfortable at the position and growing. And so it's just going to be an interesting to see how this year finishes off. If he can win a few games and keep putting up decent numbers, then I think either the Colts or some other team out there would love to have him.
And last question for you, Mark, before we let you go. Peyton Manning, it's not, and you can relate to just having played in the NFL, extremely difficult to sit for as long as and as competitively as Peyton has played and at the level that he's played at this league. How does he handle this situation, and how do you see his desire to get back and get going? I'm sure it's strong, but how fast does that come to pass for him?
Well, truthfully, I don't think I would want to be his wife right now. I'm sure he is driving everybody crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, this guy is used to coming to work every day, taking every rep in practice, doing everything every day, playing every game, playing every play of every game, and so to suddenly go cold turkey and not play at all, I'm sure this is absolutely killing him, and I'm sure he's driving the trainers nuts, the doctors nuts on how much more can I do to get better, and can I speed up the rehab and all that. So I think Peyton, assuming he'll get the pass after the year saying that you are healthy, I think he's going to be chomping at the bit to get back and prove that he's still got a lot left in the tank. And I do think that he has good 3 or 4 more years, assuming he doesn't take that big hit. So I think Peyton is a tremendous competitor, and I'm sure he's dying not being able to help out this team and seeing that every week they're not able to win football games.
All right, Mark. Well, thank you so much for your time in the middle of a Friday afternoon. We'll look forward to seeing you up here in West Lafayette, I'm sure sooner than later. And we wish you well, and thank you again for joining us on Gold and Black Live.
Well, thanks for having me, Alan. I will definitely be up there tomorrow cheering on the Boilers, and hopefully we can get a little string going here and take care of business tomorrow.
All right. Always good to win on homecoming, Mark. Have a safe trip up. Thanks again.
Thanks, Alan.
All right, those of you that have hung with us, and we appreciate that very much. We will be back next week with Calvin Williams will be our guest at Purdue's, one of Purdue's new assistant athletic directors and a former excellent player, obviously played in Purdue in the mid-'80s and played in the NFL, I believe, for 7 years, most of that time with the Philadelphia Eagles. We want to thank our sponsors, Hilton Garden Inn, when tomorrow's a big day, stay at HGI tonight, State Farm agent Trent Johnson. And you can check on Trent by going to trentismyagent.com. Follets and Purdue Pride, the Purdue Pride outfitter since 1945. And then, of course, also West Point Steakhouse, a family-owned steakhouse, just a short drive from Ross-Ade Stadium, and a great place to enjoy, tomorrow with the Purdue and Illinois fans coming back and forth. A great place to stop if you're traveling between Lafayette and Champaign tomorrow, and there'll be, I'm sure, some Illinois fans doing that as well. We appreciate, thank you to our guests, Mark Herman, Dave Shondell, and our staff at Gold and Black, and obviously, too, to our folks that helped us out, Gordon Jackson, certainly Patsy, and Brandon today for all their help, and we'll look forward to joining you next week on Gold and Black Live.